Mr. V here. Alright, so today we're checking what are not your powers, not my superpowers, but the powers of algebra. Alright, but before we get into it, like, subscribe, click that bell button. Let's get into it. Now, we have been working with powers and roots on our calculators for ages. But let us remind ourselves what is really going on behind the scenes. In the first example of 2 to the power of 3, we must know that a power simply means that I am multiplying the base with itself 3 times in this case. And our times tables tells us that I can say 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 should give me 8. Now let's look at the next example. Here we are multiplying a negative along with the 2. So we must know now to write negative 2 multiplied by negative 2. And we see that multiplying a negative with itself gives us a positive value. And negative times negative is positive. And 2 multiplied by 2 is positive 4. And so having an even numbered exponent gives me a positive value. Now let's have a look at negative 5 all to the power of 3. And here we have negative 5 multiplied by negative 5 multiplied by negative 5. And so let's have a look. A negative multiplied by a negative multiplied by a negative. Well, that should give us a negative. And 5 multiplied by 5 is 25. Multiplied by 5 is 125. And so we see when we have a uneven or odd exponent, then we will have a negative value. So let us try this in this combined question. Now, when we are looking at this first term of negative 8 squared, we must remind ourselves that the negative is not being squared, only the 8. So we're taking negative 8 squared, which is 64. And then we're adding to that negative 2 to the power of 6. And because we have an even exponent, we know that our value is going to be positive. And 2 to the power of 6 is also 64. And so our final answer would be negative 4 plus 64, which is 0. And so powers work exactly as we expect them to do. Now let's have a look at roots. Roots are the inverse operation of powers. So if a power of 2 is going to give me the base multiplied by itself, then the root of 4 is going to give me a value that when it is multiplied by itself gives 4. Let us see what that means. The square root of 4 is 2, because 2 multiplied by 2 would give me 4. And let us look at the next example. Now, this root with a small 3 is called the cubed root. And that is asking for what is multiplied by itself 3 times to give us a value of 8. And again, in the previous question, we had 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2, giving us 8. That should give us a clue as to our answer here, which would be 2. Alright, now let's look at this third example of square root of negative 16. Now this might be slightly tricky, because when we try and think it through, is there a number that when you multiply it with itself would give us negative 16? That is impossible. So it is important to note that you can never take the square root of a negative value. Okay, it is an impossible question to answer. But then, is the same true for a cube root? Well, no, not entirely, because we had a look at the third power of negative 5, and that gave me a negative 125 answer. So let us ask ourselves, what multiplied by itself 3 times would give us a value of negative 27. While with some trial and error, you might see that when you multiply negative 3 with itself 3 times, you would get negative 27. And so the cube root of negative 27 is going to give me negative 3. Alright, now it's your turn. Go try some combinations and practice. But always remember, do your best and pray for the rest.